Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 64 of ZK Live. Tonight we have Iris Marcus, an absolute legend in the decorative painting world and the painting world in general in the Boston area. She's unbelievably talented, awesome energy. Really excited to talk to her tonight.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Not too shabby. Here I am, being all high tech.
Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, for people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about what you do and what your business looks like.
Well, let's see. I work alone, although sometimes I do work with wonderful colleagues like yourself and Jessica Allred, who's an incredible painter, and several other people who I'm very fortunate to have. I can call colleagues and friends as yourself. So I do decorative and faux finishes and murals. That's pretty much what I do. But in that like repertoire is gilding and graining and faux marble and all kinds of stuff, trompe-l'oeil, and that's what I do. I work with a lot of designers, and I work with homeowners and contractors, and I get subcontracted by folks like yourself. And that's what I do. I splash paint around and try to make it look like something it's not and get paid. That's what I do. And I do a lot of Venetian plaster, which has been really something I've been doing a lot of in the last 10 years, and I really dig that. So that's it.
Awesome. So how did you get started in this business?
Well, that's quite a while ago, and I was a teenager. I was 17 or 18, and I needed to make money to go to college. And I was working at Friendly's. Do you know Friendly's?
I do know.
Friendly's ice cream. It's a New England thing, I think. And minimum wage was $2.10. So, a little tight to make money for college. So eventually I left Friendly's because things were just not copacetic. And my stepfather he had a building that they were roofing, and he offered me a job working with the roofer, and I made $4 an hour. So I thought I was a genius, And then I found out everybody else was making $8. But that's what happens when you work for your parents. So eventually I ended up painting neighbors' homes because I was like, hey, I can do this and I can do that, and I can paint and roof and all this stuff. And I made $4 an hour, then $5 an hour, and I thought, hey, I can make money for school. It was a little cheaper back then. And so I started painting houses to make money to go to college. And I went to school, I went to North Adams State in the Berkshires here in Massachusetts. I went there for 4 years, and then I deferred graduation, and I went to Mass College of Art. And while I was at Mass College of Art, I became friendly with a number of people there, and we started painting houses together. And one thing led to another, and we were doing exteriors and interiors. It was my company, so I was the one at the end going, oh, pay everybody else and go, you know how that is, not a lot left. But one day I was working on a house in Cambridge, and a couple of my friends and I were painting sashes and looking through the window, and I saw this woman doing some funky finish on the wall, and I was like, wow, what? And this is like 1982 or something, or 3, and she was like doing some kind of treatment, and I was like, what's going on? Boom, she puts newspaper on the windows, and that's the end of that. We don't get to see anymore. So that just got my brain going, what am I looking at here? And I just started investigating more and more into what this these finishes she was doing. And I found out it's called faux finishes or decorative finishes. And I'm probably like at this point 23 or 24 years old. And I'm new to the city. I grew up in the country. And so this whole fancy pants painting is way beyond my way of thinking. But I investigated, and I found out they were teaching some classes in Boston at Johnson Paint. This is, again, a long time ago. And I took a couple classes and started practicing in my kitchen. In the weekends, I would set it up like a studio, and I would practice doing decorative and faux finishes and all kinds of stuff, faux marble and malachite and azurite and all these different finishes, thinking, yeah, this is what I want to do. So after about 3 years of practicing, I offered it up to a client. I said, listen, I was painting their house, and I thought, you have this Victorian house with an upper and a lower mantle, and I can make it look like marble. And they were like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, I can make it look, I can look at me. I'm like, sure, salesman. And I said, look, if you don't dig it, I will repaint it and you don't have to pay me anything. So, well, how much is that going to cost? I said, well, $200. Well, that's crazy, including materials, right? And samples and everything else. But, I was a young kid. So I did it. They loved it. And to be honest with you, one thing led to another. And names got around, and people who I had no idea who these people were, but they were calling me and like, hey, I saw there's something you did. And would you do it at my house? And how much is it? I'm like, $200, $200. Come on, you can do that, right? So I'm like painting for $200, all these faux marble mantles. But one thing led to another. And eventually people said, hey, can you do my walls? And can you do this? Can you do that? And I, even if I couldn't, I'd figure out how to do it. And before I knew it, I was like painting things. And, that's my story. Thanks a lot. Good night. No,
all right, that's it, folks. We'll
bye.
catch you next week.
So that's it. And one thing led to another. And before I knew it, that's kind of like what I was doing, I mean, it's not that simple, actually, but.
So I like something that stood out to me was that you saw something and it had nothing to do with what you were doing, but it piqued your interest.
Definitely.
Then you chased it. Like you took classes and you practiced for 3 years before offering it to somebody.
Yeah, well, I always haven't gone to art school. It wasn't like, I was in art school. It wasn't like I was, had done that already. I was a student. And I knew that it was really important to give a quality job and to be able to feel comfortable and confident in what you're doing and what you're offering someone before you actually charge them money. So I thought, I'm going to practice this for a while before I bring it up. And then, I suckered some people in, and before I knew it, I was doing it. But no, it's true. It was a passion right at the beginning. I was like, whoa, what's this? And it's not just like scraping, sanding, priming, sanding, caulking, sanding, everything sanding, and then grain filling. And it was more like, well, I'm going to do this thing that brings some other part of me into the job. It's funny talking about this because we're talking several years ago and several decades ago, because I'm 62 years old. I started painting when I was 17. So, New England is a funny place. It's a beautiful place. I love New England. I've never lived anywhere else. But things don't catch on real fast. So the decorative painting thing was very slow in becoming popular. But, if you just have passion for something, eventually you have patience, it blossoms, I guess. So, yeah, I did try to hunt down more information about decorative.
So I think we should go back. We'll go forward a bunch first, and let's talk. Let's establish your credibility today, because I know that you're the real deal. But I think that
all faux, baby. It's all done with mirrors,
Well, because I think a lot of people are paint contractors that are listening, or people who want to be in the business, or want to even just do it as an employee, and charge rate and making a living painting is not an easy thing to do for everybody. And you have found a way to do it and charge top dollar.
Try.
Well, you're the best or one of the best. Nice. And so you get to charge top dollar. What does top dollar look like? Just to give people a reference.
Well, first I should preface that, but several years of not making top dollar.
Well, we're going to go back to that. We're going to go back to that. So, I just want to lay the groundwork of where are you at today? What's your charge rate today?
So I can say, like, when I do, let's say, it varies depending on what I'm doing. So for mural work, I charge more. For faux finishes, I charge a certain rate. And it depends. And Venetian plaster is a square foot rate. But when I look at, for instance, let's say a decorative finish, like a 3-color oil glaze, wet on wet, 3-color soft glaze on a wall in an average room, which most of our clients have rooms that are as big as the whole house we live in. An average room runs anywhere between, not including the base coat. Base coat's done by someone else, like yourself, prepared for me. So I come in and, like, the Queen of Sheba and do all the fancy schmancy. So you're talking 26 to 28, sometimes 32, including labor, materials, and samples. And samples are really important. I never do a job unless I do samples and they get signed off, because then everybody knows what they're getting. So to talk about figures, that's what you're talking
100, 150 an hour. something higher, right?
more.
Yeah, 200 an hour.
Yeah, about 200 an hour.
About 200 an hour.
Yeah,
all right.
But you should know that I started out at $4.
So I just needed to let everyone understand that today you charge $200 an hour, and you have
I try to get $200
generally
an hour,
and you're busy.
very busy.
Okay,
yeah.
so like I think that's the first. We needed to start there so that we could go backwards and go, how the heck does somebody who doesn't know anything about faux finishing end up at a point where they're at $200 an hour? And I think that story is valuable for people. And I think the passion, like right where you said, like you spent 3 years grinding samples away in your kitchen and then charged pennies for quite a long time, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is a blueprint to long-term success, right? Is short-term sacrifice. So, because that's what I've done for a long time. And I think that works. So I just wanted people to first understand that you now get to charge top dollar. And now let's go into how did you get there?
Okay. So with that being said, and I'm sure that there's lots of folks out there who can relate to this, is first of all, it doesn't just happen overnight. There's literally decades where at the end of a job, I'm like, this is crazy. What was I thinking? And besides, not bidding a job correctly. And I'll be honest with you, once I got into decorative and faux finishes, I really started making a living. Up until then, with the crew and painting and overhead, I at the end, I always looked at the bottom line and thought, why am I doing this? This is crazy. I could work for someone else. With decorative and faux finishes, the one thing I can say about myself without sounding like, I'm bragging on myself, but I also don't want to sound falsely modest or falsely humble, although being humble is a very good thing. I'm fast. I can do a room in a day. I can do a large room, 3-color, oil glazes in a day. And not a lot of people can do that or say that. They usually have more than one person doing it. There's 2 people, maybe someone's prepping or taping for them or handing them stuff, and I do it. It's me. So when people hire me, they're getting me. They're not getting, my interns or my flunkies or whatever. And don't get me wrong, I think it's really important to teach other folks how to do what we know. But I work alone, and I didn't work alone for a long time, but in the last 25 years, I've worked alone because it's just easier for me. And so getting to that point you're asking, because that's really where you're going, like the money. So included in what I do for a living is samples and meetings and design work and stuff like that. And a lot of that, it's hard to charge for that stuff that you're not on site doing. So and a lot of times I don't charge by the hour, I charge by the job. So if I make 200, fabulous. If I make 150, it's okay. As long as the job is being done right and I'm happy with my end result, that's really what it's about, because my name is attached to it, literally, because I stamp it. No, I don't spray paint. So no, it's about like giving a quality job and doing it in a certain amount of time, and people feel like they're being treated fairly, and they've gotten other bids. So maybe my price, it might not be the most expensive. Maybe I'm middle. Maybe I am most expensive. But they know when they get me, they're going to get me, and I'm going to do a job that they're happy with. And that when I'm done, they're not going to feel ripped off. They're going to feel like they got a quality job. So, the dollar thing is a funny thing, because you tell someone I make $200 an hour, they're like, whoa, my lawyer gets that. It's like, yeah, well, I've been doing this for 42 years. So good for you, good for your lawyer, and good for me too. I know maybe that sounds cocky.
And I'm good. Like,
yeah,
because you could do something for 40, 30 years and not be good, right?
It's true. You can completely suck.
And most of the people who want to tell you how long they've been doing something aren't good, right? Especially in our world.
Yeah. When someone says, I've been painting for 20 million years, it's like, yeah, whatever. But, show me that.
Have you been getting progressively better every day? Have you been dedicated to your craft? Have you been grinding the hours in the basement, in the studio? Those are the things in the kitchen. Like, that's what I think is special. And when you see people who are at the top of what they do, there's a long dedication to the craft for the craft's sake. not for the money. The money comes as a consequence almost.
Yeah, the money follows. If
Yeah.
if you're good at, if you care about it and you're, you know, so this may sound very like ethereal, but if you actually love what you do, the money will follow. You know, and you'll get what you need, and if you need more, then you'll have to make some sacrifices in your life, because when you're self-employed, as you know, it's not like an 8-hour day. You know, it's if that was an 8-hour day, I'd be like thrilled. You know, you give up a lot, but you gain a lot. So what I gain is I gain the sense of achievement, of confidence, of what I am, who I am, or what I do. To be honest with you, when I'm not doing what I do, I don't know who I am sometimes. You know, like when we had this COVID thing and everything got shut down, or something happens, like we go into some kind of financial struggle in the world, and I'm not working. I mean, I find things to do. I hone in new techniques and work on my own house and drink a lot of alcohol. No, I don't. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Just threw that in, that painter thing.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, it's like, who am I, you know, when I'm not doing what I love? Because I really am into what I do. And you are too. I think most people who love what they do, it's hard to not. So, you know, I think when you're passionate about something, it reads. And the money comes. The money. I don't mean to sound like the money is the only thing, but when you have workers' comp and liability and health insurance and a studio and a truck and an alcohol problem, no, no. You need money. You need to pay your bills. And then you get to a certain age where you only can work so many more years before your arm falls off, you know?
Yeah.
So it is important to make a living. And I don't mean to dwell on that. And I know you were asking that because it's important for people to know, hey, there's this way to make a living and there's this way. And, you know, but it's not just the money. It's really about caring and your passion and feeling satisfied, fulfilled. Also, I love pats on the back. I'm a real people pleaser. I think that's why I got into the business. It's really sometimes all about like, good job. Ooh. And I love that, you know, I love accolades and recognition. Who doesn't, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, be humble, because you don't know. I mean, I can't say you don't know. I should say I don't know everything yet. There's always room for growth. There's room for learning new techniques and new mediums, right? Am I off subject yet? Am I still like?
No, this is you are the subject.
The subject?
So anything that you say is the subject. But that's I've spent a lot of time studying successful people, right? Because I wanted to get someplace in life, and I felt like for a long time I was working really hard and I wasn't getting anywhere. So I have spent a long time studying successful people and trying to deconstruct how does someone find success. And you can determine success by whatever parameters you want, but you know, I think a lot of it comes down to, like you said, when you love what you do, it's easier to work harder and to constantly improve, right? If you don't love it, why are you going to spend your free time getting better at it? It's going to be a lot harder. You're going to be fighting your biology instead of, when you love what you do, you're just like, of course you're going to spend time perfecting a new thing or trying out a new thing, and that constant growth is something I think in the painting industry is not pervasive. There's a lot of like, I've been doing it this way forever, and like, that's the way. And I would like to see more people continually grow, because I think you're a great example of what that looks like, right?
Well, thank you. Sure. Yeah. You know, what it comes really down to is you look at where you were and you look at where you are and where you want to go. And to me, it's about growth, and knowledge, and with that you bring hopefully some integrity and some passion. So you mix it all together and you dump it on the floor, and hopefully it doesn't look like slop. You know, it's really about. I think for anything anyone does. I mean, this may sound very Pollyannic, but if you care about your name, like your name is on your business or it's related somehow to it's on your business card somewhere, you're accountable. And so that alone brings you up a notch or two, you know? And ZK painting, you're ZK painting. And you're not like, up upon a roof painting, or some, I don't know, whatever. It's like you're there. It's your name. You're accountable. And so they're gonna look for you. If something messes up, you're the man. You're gonna be getting a call. So my name it's just my name and company. That means people like yourself that I work with, that I acknowledge. I'm not just alone, that I follow other people like yourself, like Jessica Altred, who you interviewed recently, who's, I have to say something about Jessica Altred. I met her several years ago, and I immediately thought to myself, oh my gosh, I met someone, and this may sound like I'm bragging on myself. I don't mean that way. Please, Jessica, you know where I'm coming from. I felt like I met myself. There's something about her that I was like, what the hell? And I was completely like, this woman is so into what she's doing, but she is on a level of like blow it out of the park craziness. And like yourself, like the care about your shop, the care about the tools you have, everything that goes into having a functional business doesn't come by chance. Folks like you and Jessica and several other people that we know, it doesn't just happen by chance. It's not like you fell into it. It may feel like that sometimes, like, oh, look where I am. What happened? How did I get here? This is your life leading up to the place where your integrity and your care and your craftsmanship and thinking everything you're doing, everything you do is motivated about doing a quality job. It's your name is connected to that. And when I meet folks like you and Jessica and other folks I've worked with, and I'm very fortunate that I work with a great group of people, they bring you up. Like, you can't screw up because everybody's watching you, And so you're going to be held accountable. So yeah, it's like, you're a good example of that. You treat your employees with respect and dignity. You give them good tools and the mechanics to do the job correctly. And then the job itself, saying, do the best job you can do. I don't want to hear about anything else. Do the best job you can do. I mean, what else can you ask for, right?
No, I think passion, like that's our tagline, is passion for craftsmanship and ZK painting. But just anytime you meet someone that has passion for what they do, what comes with that is then also, given enough time, they're going to be good, right?
Yeah, you hope anyway.
like give it enough time, because no one's born like knowing how to do all this stuff. But all of the research, it is not rocket science, and even rocket science can be figured out. Like, if you care enough, you can always go and you can always get a little bit better tomorrow. And I think that is such a key piece, and I think that it's somewhat lacking in our industry as a whole. There's a lot of going through the motions happening, and not a lot of passion. And I'm this part of the reason why we do the show is, and why we put all this stuff on Instagram, is to try to help other people find their passion and re-enlight some people's passion in the painting industry, because it's awesome. Like, we get to do cool stuff. Yeah. And when you have the passion, like, you get a little bit better each day.
Yeah. There's always room for improvement. And if you think you know everything, you might as well call it a day, And I know that sounds very flippant, but the truth of the matter is, whenever somebody says, I've been painting for 25 years, and that's their thing. I've been painting for 25 years. Like, that's what makes them okay. Man, you could paint for 50 years and still suck, let's face it. And I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means. There's always room for improvement. I'm always trying to be like, okay, stay steady and just try to learn a little more every day, try new products, get into new materials, and listen to what other people are doing. Even this Instagram stuff, man, this is so beyond me. Believe me, I was using a 2 tomato soup cans and a wire up until last night. So here I am with you. Like, who knew that was going to happen, right? But no, I think, when you bring, I know this sounds like I'm being all like, hey man, it's all groovy, but truth of the matter is, when you bring like sensitivity and care and passion and respect for the trade, respect for other trades, See, that's the other thing. So like if you're following other trades, you owe it to them to do the quality work that keeps what they did in that place. You know, if you, like, let's face it, we've all had days where you're following someone else. The plaster work is like feeble, and maybe the carpentry wasn't like as tight, and little wood chatter that shouldn't have been done, and they should have done this or that, or following other tradespeople who don't clean up after themselves. But most of the time, we're working with people who actually care. And if they care, we should care. And it's kind of like trickle down caring, right? So it's like, oh, good.
So the continuing education thing, I think, is huge, right? No matter, you're 62, you've been painting forever. And
did I say I was 62? Oh, 42.
42.
I did Geritol kind of.
And you called me last week, and we were like nerding out about liquid metal, and and you're doing tests, stuff. And you're getting it, and so I think it's the great example there is the constant improvement. So from the first class you took at Johnson Paint, what have you done for continuing education? How do you continue to learn and improve?
So that was several years ago, and that was a good experience for me, because it really did make me think, like, you know, what am I being taught and how much do I know? You know, because I'd been to art school and I've been painting for a long time. So after that, I bought, like, behind me, I got like a gazillion books over here. Some are good, some aren't good, but it makes me realize like what to do and what not to do. So I started buying every kind of decorative painting book that I could get my hands on. I probably have like couple $1,000s worth of books. I don't even know. I'm like kind of like a nerdy book person, but even though I'm not very well educated in that regard, I have lovely people, including my partner, who buy me great books, you know. But the decorative painting books, the first book I ever got was Isabella O'Neill, and she was she taught decorative painting, and that book, I bought that book probably in 1982 or something, and I think it's a fairly old book. And the recipes are very old and a little bit, you know, dated, but you can learn a lot. And then you can flip it and do your own thing on it. And then there was other decorative painters that I have a huge regard for. Pierre Finkelstein, who is a genius. Really, I know that's an overstated phrase, but he is a brilliant decorative painter. And other painters, Pascal Amblard, who I've taken classes with, as well as Pierre. But Pascal is my mural guru. So, you know, I've taken decorative painting classes, and my big thing is mural painting. So I've taken classes with Pascal in San Francisco, and he's amazing. If you look him up, you guys will be like, what? This guy is, and he's so humble. So you asked me about my education. I went to Mass College of Art, so I studied multiple things there. I changed my major. So several times, which a lot of people do, you know, metals major, printmaking major, sculpture major, painting houses. Never was a painting major though. But no, mostly self-taught. And if you talk about classes, I've taken some classes a number of years ago with Pierre, but mostly self-taught. So the education comes from buying materials, mucking around with it, seeing how far I can push it, experimenting. Like if I have dead days, I'm in the studio mucking around with materials. I'll tell you one thing, and this is like probably maybe a strange bit of advice, but it's something that has helped me. So at some point you start, right? You start to finish, and at some point it becomes mud. You know, you've taken it too far, and now it's mud. Some place between the beginning and mud, there's a place to stop. And that would have been your finish. Let's go. I moved too fast. Yeah. See, I'm not high tech, but I got this iPad Pro and I just gave it a good little whack. So anyway, back to what I was saying, between beginning and mud, you could have stopped. And that would have been the place to say, that's where it is. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Totally.
So and that's how you learn. You do samples. You do a heck of a lot of samples, and then how's that? Is that better? And then basically you know where you should have stopped, and you learn where to stop, basically.
So what does your sample process look like today?
Yeah, keep this girl steady right here. You know? So yeah, so I have dry down sample boards. It's like kind of like a poster board that I base coat it with. Just because I'm 5'2". You see what I got to do here? So basically, I have sample boards that I base coat with a certain base color, or whatever the base color is. And then for decorative finishes and glazes and stuff, I manipulate different glazes over that, colors. I usually you could do something that's a strié over the board. Let's say you're doing a strié, which is sort of like a silk design, or modeling some kind of broken color that has like a fresco look. So that's a whole different grouping of samples. Is that what you're asking? So how do I make my samples?
Yeah.
So you have a board. It's like you lay down a base coat, and then you manipulate glazes on it, and then it dries, and then you're like, there you go, there's a sample. And then some of them, Venetian plaster, for instance, I start out with a 2x2 board made out of MDF, and I prime it with an acrylic primer, and then I apply quartz primer, which has a little bit of an aggregate to it. You're familiar with that. And that gives a little tooth to the substrate, which allows you to, allows the Venetian plaster to adhere properly. It's really important to me, and probably several other Venetian plaster finishes. Super important. Without a good substrate, like anything else, call it a day, because you're not going to get good results. So those are my Venetian plaster samples. I have multiple trowel finishes. The metal that you mentioned, that's very similar to Venetian plaster. It's for me. I mean, I don't use spray. So it's a trowel finish, and I manipulate it.
And so are you taking, like, I know Jessica she's the note-taking queen.
Yeah.
Her favorite tool is a multicolored pen.
Yeah, I know that pen.
You know, and she's got her notebook, and she's taking all those notes. As you are working on a new project or a new sample board, are you documenting how you got there?
Absolutely, yeah. So on the back of the sample board, actually, I shouldn't say that on the back of the sample boards. I have stickers, and they have my logo, and it says something about if they're my property, and there's some legality, blah, blah, blahs on there, so people can't, copy my stuff without permission, things like that. And on that, I write everything I did. Everything, the base coat, every glaze, every color, it is note-taking. And that's on the sticker, and sometimes it's actually on the back of the board. Maybe it's too much information for the sticker, and I write everything I did. So I'm not afraid to give my information out. So, if a designer is going to show my samples to another decorative painter and play some kind of game, that's their thing. I probably don't want to work with them anyway if they're not going to be, honest with me. Because I don't make samples unless I'm doing the job. So samples take time. When I do samples for a room, I usually do at least 2, and they're big. They're good size. They're 22 by 24 inches. And on the back, it says exactly what I did so I can reproduce it. And I keep a pint of every color I made in a box with the client's name on it. So when I'm ready to do the job, I can make more, and I know exactly what I did. I know exactly what's in it. It is a little, I am a little fastidious when it comes to that stuff. It's really important because, like I could tell you, when we had 10 feet of snow a few years ago, I already had ice dams and stuff. I got a lot of callbacks from jobs I did 20 years ago where they had walls that were damaged. And, instead of doing the whole room, I could just repair what I did because I left each client a pint of oil glaze. And on the pint says number 1, number 2, number 3, and what I did. And I have a record of what I did. It sounds boring and tedious, but it's really important.
It sounds amazing because I think that's something that I was not taught that. Let's say that. I think in the painting companies that I ever worked for, it was like show up, put some paint on stuff, and get the heck out. And there wasn't a lot of thought that went into it. And
Yeah,
when I see
that's
like
not
higher
a bad
level
thing.
people, there's a lot of thought that goes into it, right? Today, with the painting that we do, we think a lot about what we're going to do before we do it. And I think there's a direct relationship to how good the outcome is and how much time you spend thinking and planning ahead of time. So
Yeah.
I wish I had been taught that sooner, but it's through meeting people like Jessica and yourself, and through a lot of pain and a lot of mistakes, we have learned to take much more copious notes and to be a lot more methodical about things.
Yeah. No, it's, if you're going to replicate something, you got to know what you did. Because the other side of that is someone might look at that. Like I have a portfolio with, I literally have a flat file on the other side of my shop here that has hundreds of samples in it, all different types of finishes from, you know, strié, moire, glazing, all kinds of hoo-ha, gilding. Each one is specific. You know, each color is specific. It's not, I make a lot of my own colors. I mean, sometimes you can take paint, you know, off the shelf rather, or chip paint, you know, this number, yada yada, HC 68. But it's not quite right. So I might tweak it, but I know how I tweaked it, and I write what I did and all that jazz, and they're all in pints, and I write on the can exactly what I did so I can make it again, or pretty close if someone else wants that finished. So on the back of these sample boards, it says exactly what the base coat is and exactly the glazes I used. So they can be replicated again if somebody says, you know what, I dig that, and I'll be like, great, I'll save you some money not making samples. But usually I make another new sample because, you know, things happen. But yeah, it's important to write all that stuff down, and you know, it's the history of the job. It's important, I guess.
Yeah. What can you talk to me about gilding? You've mentioned it a couple times. I don't know a lot about it. What is gilding?
So you can there's all kinds of leaf: palladium, platinum, silver, white gold, different kinds of gold: 22 karat, 23 karat, pink, rose gold, yellow gold. Then there's silver leaf, aluminum leaf, which some people call silver, but it's not silver, it's aluminum. But it's okay, you can call it silver, I guess. And there's copper leaf, and then there's composition gold leaf, which is also known in the trades as Dutch gold, but we call it composition gold. So composition gold is brass. It looks like gold. It's sheets, larger sheets, about 6x6, not quite, but 6x6. Where real gold is 3 1/4 by 3 1/4, something like that. But it looks like gold. Oh, actually, there's something in the background here. See that piece up here? That piece. So that's a print of an original painting, a quite large painting I did, and that is composition gold and brass. Then I used patinas and manipulated it. So the nice thing about brass is, and copper, that it'll accept a patina. So you can have some fun with playing with color. Where gold, you know, you're not going to want to put a patina on that. First of all, it won't accept a patina because it's gold. I mean, gold, you can see, you know, you can find gold that's 1,000 years old in a dig, and there it is, beautiful, because, you know. So gilding is taking sheets, very thin sheets of metal, whether it be copper or brass is composition, or gold or silver or platinum or palladium, and applying it to a size. And a size is like a glue, but it's let's just imagine, and you can use water-based size, not size like wallpaper size. It's actually it's like varnish. Okay, so you can use oil size, which is basically like varnish, and then there's water-based. So let's talk about oil size. Keep it simple for now. So a size can be something that we call a quick size, which means it sets up in a short amount of time, 2.5, 3 hours, 1.5, and it gives you maybe 2-3 hours of tack time. So when you apply the leaf, you only have a certain amount of time where it's going to adhere to the leaf, and then it starts to set up and it won't adhere to the leaf anymore because it's dry. Then there's slow size that you apply to whatever you're doing, and it takes a long time to set up. It can take like 12 hours to set up, but it gives you 12 hours of tack time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So, and then there's water-based size that you can apply that sets up really fast and can stay tacky for 36 hours. And what you're doing is you're taking this size, you're applying it to a substrate that has, for me, a base coat, let's say of a deep red. And I apply the size over the deep red. I apply my sheets of gilding on there, and then I burnish it, and it sticks. And if it's real gold, I can just walk away from it. If it's brass, the next day I put it, or copper, I put a sealer on it that keeps it from tarnishing, and it protects it. So I don't know if I've made any sense, but
No, you have. So
you can gild ceilings, furniture, a little decorative hoo-ha. I use it in artwork a lot.
The ceilings thing is really cool. I think that's probably how most people have seen it, I guess. Maybe not, but that's how I always think of it. It's like the square metal ceilings that are gold or silver looking.
Yeah. Yeah. So it comes in rolls as well, which is the easiest way to apply sealing, for me anyway. So instead of putting up individual sheets and lining it up, it comes in rolls, ribbons, they call it ribbons. But it's a roll like toilet paper, basically. But there's a sheet of wax paper, and on top of that sheet of wax paper are the leaves, and they overlap, I think, by 1/4 of an inch, and you get this overlapping. Where they overlap, that's that little line you see sometimes. Yeah. So, and it's not just the line where they butt. Sometimes you get this beautiful overlap line that gives you this whole other, sheen where that overlap is. It can be really beautiful if it's done, if it's, utilized a certain way. So you size your ceiling or whatever you're doing, and it gets tacky, and then you take these rolls and you apply them on the ceiling, and the wax paper goes bye-bye, and you have the leaf on the wall, and on the ceiling rather, and then you take a soft brush and you just gently hit the top and just hit that leaf so it sticks better. And after you apply several rolls or several lengths, you can then take the brush and go the opposite way, and you get rid of the skewings. And the skewings are the overlap that didn't stick. So if you have, you know what I mean, it's like there's this little area that's not sticking to the sides because there's two sheets overlapping themselves. So that goes bye-bye. So, it's not a huge amount of waste or anything, because generally you could fill little voids with it or something. But you end up with these squares, and there are multiple squares. And if you're smart, you'll figure out how you want to lay it down and how you want to achieve your pattern. And that can be done in several ways. Before you apply your size, you can lay down some pencil marks on the ceiling, or some chalk marks, or chalk line, or whatever. However, people have lots of ways to say there's like lasers and things that people can put up there. But those are the little squares you see on a leafed ceiling. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and is that the metal is expensive? Is that right?
Yeah, I mean it's not ridiculous. I mean it
it's
depends
real
on what
gold,
material, right? Huh? Well, if you're using platinum or palladium, it's crazy. Real gold, yeah, it's expensive. Silver, but aluminum and gold and copper's more. But it's not terrible. It's not cheap by any means. I have a square foot price I charge for composition gold leaf and aluminum. They're the same, and copper is a wee bit more. But what I did was I averaged it out, so I just have a price across the board for gilding. But it depends on where I'm going and how high the ceiling is and who's doing the base coat and how much babysitting I have to do to make sure I have the right base coat.
So don't you have to not breathe and not have static electricity around you? And isn't it because it's very thin, isn't it very temperamental?
It is thin. I don't know. I think I mindlessly work sometimes. I'm just like, yeah, let's just do this. I don't know. I don't overthink it, but I don't have fans blowing. I don't have the air conditioner on, because that just sets up your size too fast, and then things are moving, and that's all crazy anyway. But no, I just, yeah, I think you probably know more about it than I do, because I'm just like, I just fall into stuff and go, dum-de-dum, here I am. How did I end up doing this? Who knew? Okay, cool. No, it's not that easy. I'm just kidding.
There's something I don't know. There's something intimidating about it that I've always wanted to do it, but we would just call Jessica or call you and like
Yeah,
I don't
call
want to
both
get
of
into
us.
that. I call
Jessica and
both
I
of
will
you guys,
we'll tag
right?
team it. Yeah, we'll
I
put it to
know.
bed. Put it to bed. So yeah, you know, that's the thing about certain finishes. Sometimes things seem very intimidating, like the high gloss finishes that you apply. A lot of people would be like freaking out. Like I used, so Fine Paints of Europe I started using Fine Paints of Europe back in the day. I'm going to say like at least 30 years ago when it first, I mean, I remember first time I used it, was on a very high end job in Brookline, and we wet sanded between coats, and in fact we grain filled with we call it enduit, but it's Swedish putty prior to that, and a lot of people were intimidated to use Fine Paints of Europe. So there you go, you use it like it's, you know, it's in your back
Yeah,
pocket.
there is something about that, and I think the answer is you go practice, right?
Yeah,
And I'm sure if we spent the next year practicing gilding, we could do it, but that's not where we're going to spend our energy right now.
yeah, because you
But
get excited.
it has definitely always been in something we were like, oh man, that's crazy. Like
Yeah,
it feels so different.
yeah, I mean it's not cheap, because if you screw up you got to redo the whole thing, because if you have one square. That's the thing about gilding. You could have one square, and sometimes it happens. It comes out of the roll, and for some reason, when they were making it, maybe the machine that produces it got shut down, and when it started up again, the one roll where it started up ended up with a weird finish, and so that one sheet, or who knows? I don't know exactly, but I did a ceiling several years ago. This is no joke. It was for a great client of mine. It's a huge dining room ceiling, and in the middle of the ceiling, pretty close to the light fixture, thankfully, and I'll get to that later, one square came out and it was an odd color. It wasn't like all the other colors. I don't know why, whether it was just that the machine stopped and it started up again, or just one, I have no idea. I don't know that much about that, the process. It's not like it's hand hammered, like some of it is. Some of the gold in Italy, they have companies that do that. But this is a machine, da 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 da. So I'm like, what the hell? So like, here's the thing about gilding. You can't just like, at least I have never been able to do this, and I don't know anyone. If they can do it, please, like, let me know how you're doing it, because I have no idea. You can't just put another leaf on there and it's going to look like the rest of it. It's about the drying time of the sides and the setting up time and everything. It will look like a different sheet no matter what you do. I tried it like more times than I can tell you. That one sheet that looked weird, I tried to mask off and do that one sheet. And every time I did it, that sheet looked different. It still looked different. It wasn't the same as the funky one, but it was a little different. The sheen was different. The gold was different. It was just different. And my client could see it and I could see it, and it was not going to happen. So I said, okay, it ain't working. I'm not going to do the whole ceiling because it's right. I don't want to do the whole ceiling because that's a lot of money. So I offered to do something over it, a decorative element over it. And it was right near the chandelier. And I said, hey, I have an idea. See if you're okay, open to this. If you're not, I'll redo it. And they were nice. They knew it wasn't really my fault or whatever. And it's just the nature of life. Things happen. So I said, how about I do some really cool organic, like leaf, not leaf, but actual like flowers coming away from your chandelier, and I'll come up with a sample, and I'll show you what it's going to look like. And if you dig it, I won't charge you, obviously. And if you don't dig it, I'll relief the ceiling. I'll reprime it, I'll paint it, and I'll relief it. And I was like, God, come up with something, Iris. Just, I was like having a third person. Is it like a talk about myself in the third person moment? Like, you can do this. So basically, I came up with this design, which was kind of it looked cool. It was kind of Asian looking, and it was these leaves that came out and onto itself, and then some smaller leaves. And I did it with Modern Masters gold paints and different like champagne paint, all the different colors they come in. And then I hand painted all these little lines within it. So the whole thing had this organic thing and all these leaves on leaves and blah, blah, blah. And then the chandelier, I popped the chandelier back up, and the client was happy. And I was like, Thanks for the gumball, Mickey. Out the door I ran. Everybody was happy.
Do you have a picture of that on Instagram?
I don't know if I have it. Here I am. You got to teach me how to use Instagram, man. I'm
Yeah.
like still with the soup can going. Can you hear me? Can you see me, Zach? I can see you. So yeah, basically I'm working on Instagram. I gotta get it. We got to do this thing, this Instagram thing.
Yeah.
I probably have it on my Facebook somewhere. I know I have it there because I'm like old school Facebook. Boop. Yeah, so you'll see it. It's on Facebook.
Okay, I have to look at it. Can you tell me about that that bathtub that I reposted today?
That bathtub I put on Instagram?
Yeah.
So this client, this designer in Boston, lovely people, asked me to gild a bathtub. That was a few months ago. It came gilded. You can buy bathtubs that are gold leafed, some fancy company, but they charge quite a bit more to have it gilded. So they asked how much I charged to do a composition gold leaf and on the tub. And I gave them a price, and they were like, great. So I made samples, and they're like, great. They deliver the tub, monster tub in my studio, weighed a ton. So because I had to pick it up enough to get it to put a shim underneath, so I wanted to get the underneath of the tub. It had like a frame, not frame, but like a foot that went around the base of the tub, and I really wanted to get that base gilded and sealed, so that when they installed it, if people get out of the tub and there was water running, on their legs or whatever, because rich people, they don't care where water goes. They get someone cleaning that. So because I know that's how I am. When I get out of my gilded tub, I'm like, who cares? Somebody's cleaning after me.
Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah, my dog's licking my legs or somebody. So okay. So anyway, the gilding. I wanted the gilding and the paint to go underneath. And this thing, I had to pick it up to put a couple little triangle shim underneath. And I don't know what this thing weighed, but I might have peed in my pants when I did it. I don't know. It's like when you're old, that happens a lot. That's why they have Depends. So anyway, basically lifted the sucker up and got underneath it, and everything was happy. And this moving company came, they picked it up, they delivered it, and it got installed. And then they built this coffin around it of wood, so nobody would. I sealed it. It was sealed. I slightly distressed it so it had like an antique, and I fly specced it. Do you know what fly specking is? So fly specking is something that you see on gilding. You see it in old mirrors, and it literally is fly regurgitation, maybe you want to call it. It's the little flies do stuff, and they leave little black specks. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you see it in old frames. So it's a way to make this, to fake this look is you take a fitch brush or a shorthand, or you could take a chip brush and cut it back, and you dip it in, it's like raw umber, Japan paint, little glaze, and you flick it, right? So basically this thing had a little fly specking, fly regurgitation or poopy, whatever you want to call it, all over it. So it had an antique look. So it was very pretty. And they were happy, yada, yada. So they deliver this thing. It weighs a ton. They get it into this place. It was at the Ritz-Carlton or the Taj or whatever, and a small, this little bathroom, and the tub is like, it's like barely fits. I have no idea how they got this thing in there because it was really heavy. And they built a coffin of wood around this whole thing to protect it. And it stayed like that for like a year. And then COVID hit, and this job got shut down. So no one's seen this tub, right? It's been like, in a catacomb for several months. So recently it was just exposed. They took the plywood off. They took a picture. They sent it to me. It looks great. Thankfully, nothing happened to it. But yeah, they got the gold leaf tub and the fly speck. Really good.
So you got a porcelain tub or something? A tub came to you.
Yeah.
How did you prep that surface?
I used, it was like a cast iron kind of tub or some material like that, but it seemed like cast iron. So I used direct to metal, DTM, Benmore DTM, and I had it tinted to a dark burgundy red color. I forget the name of the color. It's like a brownish red. And basically I applied the paint. I did 2 coats of that, and then I did my oil size, and then I did my gilding, and then someone's asking what did I use to seal it. I can see that. See? Look at high tech. Check it out.
Look at you.
Yeah, look at me. Look at me. Like I'm like this short and I can see shit. So So basically, there's a sealer that's meant for gilding. There's a water-based sealer that you can use, but there's this other sealer. They call it an acrylic sealer, but you really clean your brush with acetone. So I don't know what you call that. It's certainly not water-based. But anyway, you put that on. That's what you do to seal. So that's really important. I mentioned that earlier. You
You
really
brush it on?
you can brush it. Yeah, you can brush it. But what I do is I roll it with a either a microfiber roller, these little guys, or the little velour rollers. You don't need a ton, but you have to be careful. You don't want to put it. You don't want to use a really thin roller cover because it has a tendency. As soon as you lay it on, there's not enough. There's too much product for the amount of roller fur, whatever head. So you got to be careful not to use. Even though it's like it makes you think, oh, I want to use a really short nap roller. When you're rolling with something too short, it's just like it's so watery that there's nothing to hold it. So I use the microfibers. There's like a 3/8 microfiber, and I always clean my microfibers with water before, and like I always scrub them and rinse them and wash them with soap and water, and then I let them dry. So they're less apt to have fuzz, right? So these are I have a little collection that I use, and then you can't use them again. It's not worth cleaning with acetone, so say goodnight to that roller. So then it gets clear coated, and I do like several clear coats. Did I answer your question? Or
No, that's the question right there. Right? So you don't do you ever use wax over your gilding?
Yes, I do, but I still seal it. You mean composition gold and so there's a finish you can do that's kind of cool, and it's a technique called wax and rotten stone. Do you know what rotten stone is? It's like pumice, but it's a little finer. You can use not that I have this kicking around, but you can use cigar ash, to Groucho Marx. So it's like cigar ash, right? And when you put this pumice, when you use rotten stone in oil over a piece of wood, you can really do I'll do it up here. You can do a really fine polish, right? With gilding, the cool thing is you can take wax, and what I do is I'll add a little tint to it. And let's say a little bit of yellow ochre, or let's say yellow. Let's just say yellow, whatever, or burnt raw sienna. You can add a little raw sienna, Japan paint, or Mixol or Tinsol, whatever. You add a teeny bit, and you mix that into your carnauba wax. So you got this like yellowish wax, just a hint, and you apply the wax with a big brush. And yeah, man, I'm just in trouble here. I can't.
No, this is perfect.
Yeah, right. Just edit me. So then you basically take the brush with the wax and you pounce the piece. So your wax is on the frame. So let's say it's a gold frame with composition gold, not real gold at this point. Then you take a cotton rag and you wipe off. Or you could take just say a cotton rag, and you wipe off the high parts. So the wax is only in the crevices, right? And then you take the rotten stone. You want to wear a mask, and you just lay that on top of the frame, and it's like a powder, right? And it's all in the crevices. And then you dump the frame, save the rotten stone because we're New Englanders, and then let it dry. And then when it dries, after a couple days, you just buff off the rotten stone. And what happens is the rotten stone will collect on the wax and sit in the crevices. It has a beautiful antique look. Yeah. But do I use wax to just seal gilding? I'm sure somebody does, but I don't.
So how the heck did you learn how to do this? Gilding. And all that's the process that you just walked me through. A book?
I asked my mother. No, a book, yeah. No, actually, yeah. I guess books. I don't know, man. It's been so long. Let me think. Yeah, books. It's all about books. See these books? Lots of money in these books here. Back to those books again. No, yeah, I read about it, and it's not like they had what is this called again? Instagram. Yeah, Instagram. It's not like they had Instagram or all these Google. No, they didn't have Google. What did they have? They had nothing. They had use your brain, Oh, sorry. Google's good. I use Google a lot, but you have to, like, you think like, okay, wax is cool. What can I do with wax? And then you find a book that says, oh, here's some things you can do with wax. And that tells you. You read. Reading is good.
Read and practice. It's tremendous.
Yeah. I'm probably
What
your unorthodox interview for tonight.
what is this, the Trump, whatever the heck? I can't never say French word. Trompe-l'oeil. What the heck is trompe-l'oeil?
I don't speak French. I just know some terms, but and ironically, I have a lot of family members who live in France, so I probably sound like a moron to them. But it means to fool the eye, So basically, you're making something which what it isn't. It isn't what it is. It isn't what you're making. You're making up. You're faking people. It's all done with mirrors. So let's say you have you want to paint something that looks like marble, right? And you want to make it look like marble with some molding. So you do a faux marble, and faux marble itself is trompe-l'oeil because it's not real. And if you do a good job, people think it's real, right? So that's trompe-l'oeil.
Yeah.
You just fooled your eyeball. You fooled the person. Now, one thing you can do that's really, really cool is you can do a faux marble, let's say, and then you can create molding within your marble that looks like there's molding carved in the marble, but it's not there, right? It's just paint by using highlights, you create your lines, just gentle. I use this because I'm going to forget the name of these pencils. Oh, I have them right over there, but I'm not going to get up, so I'll knock over my thing. There are these pencils that are water soluble. They're great. I can't remember the name of them right now. It'll come to me later. And you can draw on stuff, right? And then and paint on it. And then when you're done, you can wash off whatever pencil marks. Just wash right off. Oh man, I use these all the time. They're awesome. So you could take a piece of you could paint like a big slab of marble, right? And you want it to look like it's a door, a panel door, has like highlights and shadows, and you just paint those very simply after you do your moldings. Your faux marble, and it looks like the freaking thing is like a raised panel. So you're good to go. You just look at stuff and you break it down. It's not genius.
That's so far out of my wheelhouse. I can assure you, I will never be doing something like that.
I've seen your stuff. You'd be surprised. You could do it. It's all about like breaking it down and not letting it overwhelm you. There's some stuff that's just, I hear what you're saying. I've seen work by some unbelievably talented people, and it just blows your mind what they can do. But if you break it down into its simple form, shadow, highlight, cast shadow, and you break it down, and it doesn't have to overwhelm you at all. It's fun. You're just like a detective, a painting detective.
What advice do you have for someone who's a house painter now and is interested in pursuing decorative painting? This is Jessica. Jessica asked that question.
Yeah, it's a good question, Jessica. It's a good question. So I would say find a really good teacher. I know Pierre Finkelstein has really great classes. I don't know what's going on now because of COVID, but I think you can get things online by different people. I would say get some great books if you want to learn decorative painting, and you could take classes. There's lots of places, and some of them are legitimate, and some of them are faux real. Sorry. So yeah, I think a lot of it's about practicing and having fun and not questioning your ability, and just opening your mind to like the experience and not letting it intimidate you, but to take classes by people who are really good at what they do and really conscientious about teaching, like really compassionate and caring, because you don't want to take a class. Here's the thing about classes. There are a lot of people who know stuff and a lot of people who don't, like anything else, right? But it's really important to take a class where someone doesn't just blow smoke up your skirt. You want someone who's going to look at your work and be able to criticize you, and that you have to be comfortable accepting their criticism to learn. So finding a teacher who can tell you how to do something, show you how to do something, but explain to you how to do it better. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're a house painter, right? Because I started out literally roofing and painting. I kid you not. Yeah, exterior, scraping, sanding, grinding. That's why all my joints are messed up, right? I can't tell you how much work I did when I was younger. But that is why I am where I am. All that stuff leads you, everything you've done, everything you do, even if it's not related to paint, takes you to where you are now, right? Because literally everything you know is part of who you are, which brings you to where you are, will take you further to where you want to go. So being a house painter, great, great, because now you know the fundamentals of materials. You know what to use on what surface, how to use it, when to use it, how to prepare a surface. And as long as you care enough about that surface, now decorative painting is just taking it to a different level. Not a better level. It's not that what you did is not as good as this. It's now you're taking something and saying, come look at me, right? So like if you had a base coat and you're applying a decorative finish to that, your base coat and your prep has to be on point, because anything on top of that is only as good as what's underneath it, right? So like, like when you do a high gloss finish, you're not just going to spray or paint on, something that has all kinds of schmutz in it, right?
Yeah.
It has to be de-schmutzed. It has to be beautiful. So as a regular house painter, if you learn the skills to do really good painting and really a really high level of craft, then the decorative finish on top of that, you're good to go. Because it's just about be subtle. Don't get over the top. You can always add. Do lots of samples, have fun, but do lots of samples that'll teach you what not to do and what to do. Take classes from people who you feel comfortable with, who maybe you've seen their work somewhere and they teach, and that'd be great because you can learn what not to do as much as you can learn what to do, right? But it's always about the base and the prep. So if you're already a painter and your work is already like right there, the decorative painting is just the next little happy day sauce on top of that fancy dessert, And the thing is that fancy thing you're putting on top is really is fun, and it makes you feel good. But the one thing about that is it invites scrutiny. So always be mindful that whatever you do, you're saying, hey, come look at me. I'm faux marble. I'm graining. I'm not what you think I am. But what you're doing is you're inviting the viewer to say, what is this? So now they're really looking at it. So it better be tight. You're inviting scrutiny, right?
Yeah.
Like when you do a glass door.
Oh yeah.
Someone's going to look for that one little piece of schmutz, and then you're like, damn, man, fantasy is over. Right? Yeah.
But if the smoke and mirrors is good enough in the sales and marketing process, then nobody even looks close. They just look at it from afar.
About. Trust me, I don't do any prep. I'm just smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. It's the best way to succeed, if anyone's wondering. Just be a complete lie.
That's it.
Yeah.
Forget the lawsuits. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, just pay a lawyer to make sure you charge enough.
Yeah.
Get in, get out. Get a check.
The thing about that I remember this is a funny antidote or whatever, a funny story about back in the day when we were painting houses, and I was like in my 20s, and we were painting these Victorians in Brookline, massive Victorians, multicolor, and we tint our primer so that the base coat would really lay down, that would really cover beautifully. And with time, when you have a tinted primer, the primer isn't sucking the color out. So with time,